So we're gonna have our next speaker, who is Christine Mill-Leclerc. Christine is a German artist who works at the interface of artistic and scientific research. His speech title is Curation. So please join me in welcoming Christine. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think Christine probably is not online right now. So we're gonna move Alina Constantin in front of the Christine. So let me introduce our next speaker, Alina Constantin. Alina is graduating masters in game design at NYU's Game Center, a multicultural visual artist entrepreneur, creative activist, and narrative system designer. Her speech is titled Handmade AI, a game state of mind. Please join me in welcoming Alina. Hello, Alina.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm just gonna share my screen and make sure this works. Okay, let's do this. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. And I'd also like to thank Tongji University for giving me the honor to present today. So my name is Alina Constantin. I'm an investigative game maker, multicultural artist, and graduate at NYU's Game Center. My focus is on unearthing human stories out of large systems and sharing their results in play. I've worked on both digital and non-digital games for 1 or 30 players on topics like environmentalism, the shipping industry adoption, generation gaps, or data privacy. I've designed and taught in Europe, West Africa, and the United States. And why I do this work, I view art and games as aesthetic objects of collective culture that can help us make meanings of things. Let me see here. Why is my slide not moving forward? So as today's conference shows, AI means very different things for different people. I believe that that is the power of AI as well as part of its problem. My work on Handmade AI is not about the curious art that can be made with AI models, but rather about asking how a curious outsider perspective of art making can reflect on the human processes at play in AI. Can we frame the core systems of human logic and assumptions encoded in the math of our machine knowledge in card games and non-digital games? What new angles can this provide in how we see, build, and use AI? I'll show you a few videos of the work briefly and then explain some process and hopefully have some time for questions and answers as we go.
Hello, Alina, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry for interrupting. Do you think this video have the sound? Because we can't hear the sound of the video.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Did you
yeah.
miss the
Sorry.
sound of the previous one as well?
Yes, I think so.
Oh my
So
gosh.
could
Oh,
you
I'm so
please
sorry.
double
Yes,
check?
yes. Okay. Let me redo this. Well, this is
Thank you.
terrible. I'm so sorry. Okay.
The video is pretty. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Unfortunately, that's
Thank you for joining
a
in this
problem.
curious
I'll just skip the one where I'm speaking and show you the first one again. I'm really sorry about that.
Okay, yeah, we can hear the sound right now.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I'll skip the next one for time's sake. So in skipping this, basically what Handmade AI is a black box of ideas to play with. There are a couple of card sets with nice names, the extraction game, the forecaster deck, the decision tree, and they explore concepts that are at the base of AI, which are extraction in data extraction, interpretation in data interpretation, and role play as well as decision making in the decision tree. In an ideal scenario, this box would sit in your conference hall, on a table in a park, or in your kitchen, and you have a guide to walk you through it, as well as make your own connections, which is what play is about. In this case, I will walk you through some of it. The first experiment, the extraction, is a strategic card game that looks at resource management, feedback loops, and governance. It's the result of a 9-month collaboration with eminent researcher Mona Sloan. Her work on the project called This Is Not a Drill, looking at the interaction of AI, accountability, and the climate crisis, as well as her co-opting AI series at NYU's Institute for Public Knowledge, are basically what started all of this for me and are a great resource in changing how I relate to AI. Mona looks at the human bias in the vectors of AI and helps understand the power play, hidden costs, and ghost labor involved in these vectors. So we worked on bringing forth qualities of AI through cards as a social superstructure. To translate her research into a game card perspective, I looked at what something that is both in games and cards, which are feedback loops. AI in games can both be seen as sets of instructions that encode priorities from their authors into a sequence of actions that repeat. These action loops generate more outcomes than the initial state of the system. This is something that we have in games, whether they are digital or not. In the extraction game, what we did was design categories of cards as resources needed to be moved around. These assembled sets have stories based on green AI models of machine learning that are currently being developed to solve sustainable concerns. In this game, you have counters to keep track of where your resources are in the system, and through a linked network of actions that you get by fulfilling more and more of these sets, you potentially could solve the climate crisis with these models. Ultimately, though, your actions trigger as many destructive events in the world space of the mind that is a part of the card deck as solutions, and the game is about finding a balance in that process. I will show you a little bit in motion, and hopefully this has sound. Please interrupt me if it does not.
Okay.
Welcome to The Extraction,
Yes, we
a
can hear it.
strategic game of cooperative survival where we play a team of experts selected to solve the climate crisis with the world's best technologies. In the Extraction game, we start with a mine of resources, represented by double-sided cards that need to be redistributed through our world space in a short amount of time before our balance as humans with the Earth runs out. Each expert on our team has specific roles and abilities in this space, and together we will attempt to reset the order and arrangement of resources, building an elaborate network of AI models that will allow us to send them back to our global life support, the root. How will we do this? On our turn, we each choose from a set of different ways to use these resources. We can reveal or take from the mine. We can store or build out our network, or we can train it, getting more actions out of fewer things. And finally, we can return resources to the root. Quickly, our network expands, filled with a variety of green AI models to help nature with the force of our technology. But wait. There may be more consequences, conditions, and turns of events coming out from the mine than any we could have predicted. Can our team be the one to reshift the balance before it is too late? Only time will tell. The story of your route awaits.
So even if I could spend hours on this alone and ideally play this with you, one of the results of this research was in finding out that there are so many more ways in which card games in themselves and in their form reflect the units of meaning and gaps in meaning that are in our understanding of AI generally. First, card games are systems of information, which involve hiding and revealing things, organizing in hierarchies. Second, card games are also a great way to play with interpretation. Just as data interpretation is made by the observer, a collaboration between their perspective and that of the system. I started making my own lists of hundreds of words starting with A and I randomly. Out of these, I selected 54 to fit the classic playing card deck of 4 suits and 2 jokers and made an interpretation deck to play with people. I chose 4 categories that cover a broad range of fields for mental association. There's mechanics, emotion, symbolism, relational terms, a process mixing ethnography and divination. In selecting, you leave some things out and ones that don't mix or generate enough variation for meaning. So that selection process needs to be transparent. The final that came out of it was a set of questions to activate these cards together. And now I have an AI deck of my own, 52 words I can pull and read with you. These trigger conversations that have brought things to the surface for technological researchers and technological agnostics alike. What all of these conversations bring to the surface is in that building AI, we're driven as much by algorithms as aspiration. As we heard earlier, the dreams of AI, how much can humans do without the human in the machine? The godlike dreams of watching your creation speak. Games of hide and seek. Is the human here? Is the human there? The surrealness of all of this. Is the human deciding? Is the machine deciding? What happens when you let somebody else decide? So the last experiment that I made was to reflect these mind games of roles and identity. The history of automation as it's present is born of playthings for the rich and famous. Smoke and mirrors and mechanisms where you know full well it is a magic trick, but it's a beautiful illusion, and who doesn't want to play with magic? I reused the card deck as character prompts, took on the history of the Mechanical Turk, as well as some of what it does today in Amazon, and decided to play the Mechanical Turk inside out. Each performance of this game is different, and I will play one out for you.
The year is 2059. For the 250th year of a game that marked the transition of powers from empire to technology, a reenactment is being staged. with this age's artful blend of AI authorship and human interpretation. The venerable game, once played by Napoleon Bonaparte against von Kempelen's mechanical Turk, will now be enhanced by the actors of playtime and classifications of the incorporated people's knowledge base. How exactly the game box has reduced into little more than an open cage, or why has it spit out the Turk as a bird of paradise via pathways of the great Amazon? Who's to say? Agent N, Agent K and the bird assemble at the decision tree, and the cards are laid out. Let the game begin.
So in conclusion, AI and games have many potent connections in their history and as media that amplify and transform our context exponentially. Our human cultures are fascinated by the mind and how inscrutable it is. As we distance ourselves from it in naming it the deep learning of a machine, there is power made and there is also power lost. AI and games are power tools, and I believe they're worth treating as such with the safety mechanisms of inquiry and accessibility, using perspectives that are not just pragmatic and technical, but also social, expressive, and philosophical, as our previous speakers have shared today. We need deeper and more modular structures of discussing AI for people studying technology, making technology, or using it on all sides of the aisle. This research of designing handmade AI has convinced me that analog games are also a great way to do that together. I look forward to continuing this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Alina. Do we have some questions to Alina?
I just want to thank you, Mona Sloan, because it's Filippo speaking, because you are here thanks to her. She suggested your name to me. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Alina. We're probably gonna have some questions to the panel discussion. Can you hear me, Alina? Hello?
Let's see. Yes, I can hear you. I must have
okay,
been
okay.
muted.
Yeah. So we're gonna leave the questions to the panel discussion session.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for the speech.
Thank you. And also many thanks from Mona. For putting me
Thank
here today.
you.